You are listening to the Push Media Podcast Network.
This is good shit.
Have you ever had to sit through a conversation so insulting to your intelligence that the people having the conversation are not even aware of the fact that you think significantly less of them? I just had to have that happen to me, where I had to sit through a conversation where people were talking about tattoos. I don't know if there's a conversation I think is more unfair to force upon somebody than that of your tattoo. It's not a fair thing to do to somebody, because when you start talking, any rational person who doesn't just go around murdering and spitting on people, they're going to not try and hurt your feelings. They're going to follow the social contract to an extent and basically act like this shit is normal. But what I can promise you is not normal is the fact you're getting an anchor tattooed on your body forever with the date that your dad died of pancreatic cancer. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about that. And I'm sure your dad doesn't give a fuck about that. I'm sure your dad, one of his last wishes are not you permanently disgracing your body forever with the work of some guy named Roger in a tattoo shop. Tattoos are stupid. I don't mean to judge, even though I just did and I am. And I'm not, like, if you have a tattoo, it's fine. Some of them are cool looking, I guess. I don't, maybe some people had to go fight in the war, and that's why they have a tattoo on their ankle of a heart and the word Margaret on it or some bullshit. I don't know what happened in Vietnam. The point is, it's kind of just, to me, a sign that you like shiny lights. You're someone who is impressed by colors and shapes and sparkly stuff because, ooh, look, a picture. The same people that get tattoos are the same people that had their artwork, their coloring, their drawings from elementary school displayed on their family fridge for just a few years too long. You probably enjoyed all of the Fast and Furious movies if you have tattoos. You probably still watch professional wrestling. You're probably not vaccinated. That last one might be a reach. I'm not sure. But I just wanted to get that shit off my chest because, I couldn't in the situation be like, hey, everyone shut up. Shut up, shut up, shut up. These are all bad ideas because I'm a good person. I'm a nice guy. So I don't go around telling everyone just how foolish their thoughts and beliefs and ideas are. Because that's not what nice people do. Nice people talk behind people's back when they're gone, to everybody they know, and including some people they don't know. But what was crazy in this conversation, you really can't make this shit up. Bear in mind, I'm in a workplace. I'm talking with coworkers. So we're all in a setting where you have to kind of be a slightly altered version of yourself. You're not being truly authentic because you can't be authentic in the American workplace. Otherwise, you would be fired, pretty much. The only truly authentic people are the homeless ones under a bridge. They're being themselves. But anyway, so one of these bozos that was having a conversation about how impressive their tattoo was also decided to offer up that they used to have their tongue pierced. Tongue pierced, a hole through the part of their mouth that really should not be altered or fucked with because you need it. A hole in your if you get your tongue pierced, you sure as fuck better belong to an Aborigine tribe somewhere in Papua New Guinea. You better have wooden spikes, face paint, melted clay over your eyes, the whole 9 yards. I want you in a fucking loincloth if you're going to have your tongue pierced. Because if not, if you're going to just be a regular old American woman who had a tongue piercing, you might as well have said, hey, co-workers, I used to be a whore, right? Maybe that's a little strong. And I don't mean whore specifically gendered. Plenty of men can be whores. In fact, most dudes are hoes. But make no mistake about it. If you're getting your tongue pierced, it is simply for the fact that you want to, it means you couldn't suck enough dick. That means there was not enough dick in your mouth all the time for you to get a tongue piercing. Are you kidding me? You can't argue that the tongue piercing was for you. I wanted to get my tongue pierced because I wanted to be in excruciating agony and I wanted to make it difficult to eat. The thing that is required every day so I don't die? I wanted to make that task more difficult. No, you didn't. You wanted a dick in your mouth more frequently. So don't share shit like that. Maybe consider what your sentences sound like before you say them. And I know that's rich coming from me. I'm not necessarily the person who thinks the most before I speak, but I've never just blurted out in the workplace, used to be a whore. Here's a tattoo I'm thinking about of a barrel with the date my family left me. My goodness gracious. You know, you don't have to just tattoo everything permanently. And maybe some of this judgment from me is just because I think I might have a low form of anxiety, because let me put it this way. I can get anxious even if I'm going somewhere I want to go. Once I get to that place, I immediately have this first thought of like, well, I should turn around and go home. And it's for that same reason I don't think I could ever decide on what I'd want to get tattooed, because I would never feel like the object or the image that I picked was the right one. I would constantly change my mind. It would make me so goddamn anxious to know that this decision is permanent. And I say to that, why make the decision? Your body's fine. You don't have to do a bunch of shit to it. The only people who should get tattoos are fucking burn victims. You know, maybe some aesthetic tattoo work. I don't know. At this point, I'm sure I'm just kind of being an old crotchety fuck, but at the same time, I don't think I'm wrong. I really don't. I don't think I'm wrong, but no one really thinks they're wrong. No one says anything and then thinks, yeah, I'm wrong. Everyone thinks they're right, which is exactly what Joe Biden probably thought when he said, you know, Satchel Paige was the great American Negro. What the fuck? Negro? Are you kidding me? In 2021, you're going to say that? I don't even feel comfortable saying it. I already think I've said the word too much. And I'm quoting a president. Oh my God, it was weird. It was fucking strange. I mean, I know there's racists still. I just didn't think they were getting so lazy with hiding it. And I know some people will argue, and I've seen it, and those people are closeted racists too, probably. Well, they'll be like, oh, well, what Joe was doing, he was talking about Satchel Paige, the famous pitcher from the Negro League, so that it was just a slip of the words. Fuck you, fuck that, and fuck off. No, it wasn't. It wasn't a slip of the mouth, it was a slip of the words. We're talking about the same guy that when he was vice president referred to Barack Obama as clean and motherfucking articulate. Yeah, that's true. And for those of you who don't remember, I'll give you the exact quote just to be absolutely fair. Because if you want to argue Joe was thinking about something else and it was just a slip of word association and maybe Alzheimer's, potentially medically there's some validity in that. But this is the same guy that also said, and I motherfucking quote, I mean, you got the first mainstream African American who was an articulate and bright and clean and nice looking guy. I mean, that's storybook, man. You got the first mainstream African American who was articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. Those are also the words of the guy that said Negro today on national television. Now you tell me if that was a slip, if that was a Freudian slip, or if that was a guy making an honest mistake with words. Because I don't think it was an honest mistake with words. If anything, I don't think it was a mistake at all. I think it was a guy losing his mind who was racist before he started losing it. And now as he loses his mind, some of the racism is going to fall out of his body as he slowly loses air until Kamala Harris finally sits on him to death and becomes president, who may or may not actually even be alive anymore because no one knows where the fuck she is. But not to get off topic. Actually, let's talk about Kamala quickly. You know when they were running both for president during the primaries, Kamala accused Joe of being racist. Kamala accused Joe of being almost single-handedly responsible for the disproportionate amount of African Americans in privately owned prisons in America, as opposed to the white population. The same woman who locked up a lot of those African Americans for a very fucking long time because it was their third strike. Now let's talk about this third strike. I'm sure you guys are all familiar or you've heard about the concept of the three strikes law. I don't think it's still in effect anymore in California, but that law was a provision, I said that backwards, the three strikes provision was part of the 1994 crime bill. Now the 1994 crime bill, also known as the Biden family crime bill, was the bill that set in course a series of events that financially incentivized privately owned prisons to keep their populations high, introduced the three strikes rule, increased offenses and prison time for nonviolent drug offenses, disproportionately affected African Americans, and pretty much is the reason all of the prison system is fucked up today. I ask you again, was that a word mistake? Did Joe just flub a word? Or was that a man, all pun intended, showing his true colors? You piece of shit. You piece of shit. There's a lot of accusations floating around the Biden family, from what was written down in that diary to what's in Hunter's pipe and or paintbrush right now. But the biggest of all, and something I really think people just let slide and have let slide for far too long, is the fact that the dude is racist. Did you know Joe Hard R. Biden once eulogized a former member of Congress who was in the KKK, better known as the Ku Klux Klan? Yeah, that's motherfucking true. So back in the 90s, someone that Joe Biden called a mentor was Democrat Robert Byrd, who was one of the last actual Democrats from the South who was very upset about slavery. So what happened was Robert Byrd used to be in the KKK, realized wasn't a great look, I should run for an elected position, and he got one. And along the way, he mentored somebody who went on to become the president of the United States today. But when Robert Byrd passed away in the 90s, Joe Biden gave a beautiful eulogy about the former Exalted Cyclops. Okay? And that's not a Wu-Tang Clan name generator title. The Exalted Cyclops is a title bestowed to an extremely high-ranking member of the KKK. Just to reiterate, the KKK. Motherfuck. And what sucks is I have to say, I'm not trying to be some white savior. I'm not trying to be some guy who directs Hidden Figures. I'm not some blue-haired Portland lesbian talking about BLM. Obviously, I have some crazy views that upset people when I say them, but what I do firmly fucking believe is the fact that everyone is created equal. It's up to you to decide based on your actions and choices how you wish to be perceived thereafter, but we're all the same. No one's better than anyone based on how they look unless you have a severe deformity, in which case, get the fuck out of my face, you make us all sad. But we are all truly equal, except there's a few people who don't believe that, and a few of those people happen to be in positions of power, and the smart ones among them, even though they're all unintelligent buffoons, do their best to keep how they actually feel guarded. To use this coded language. And you hear about other people talking about it all the time in culture with terms like microaggressions or what's the other, code switching, when white people talk with a black inflection. That type of shit is exactly the shit that we're seeing when you hear the president refer to someone as the great Negro, or you hear the president refer to someone as a clean and articulate African American who finally went mainstream. Are you fucking kidding me? Jesus, it's not complicated. He doesn't give a fuck about you. I don't think he gives a fuck. I don't think he knows what the fuck's going on, to be clear, but he doesn't give a fuck about people that should have a fuck given about them. Because for a long time, no one gave a fuck about them. I've said fuck a lot. Fuck, 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 fuck. Point is, racism's still alive. They just be concealing it, to quote Kanye West, who actually gave a great interview on the Drinking Champs podcast. I listened to it and thought it was the first time Kanye sounded lucid, normal, and himself in a very long time. I was very happy to hear it. It was exciting stuff. Because I love a good Kanye. I love a dialed-in Kanye. Not this crazy Kanye who's clearly off his medication, but a Kanye who knows what the goal is, because he's somebody who, despite being impulsive, reckless, erratic, prone to impulse, I still think at the end of the day, he's kind of someone who wants what's right, you know? Through all the bullshit, through all the bleaching of assholes, his message lately still seems to be about his kids, you know? There seems to be a core goodness to that. So it's good to see that being on display, where people will stop unjustly attacking a guy just for having an opinion that separates from the mainstream. One of those, an example being that black people can only vote for Democrats. Whenever Kanye says that, he's called a MAGA idiot. But you know who else really wants that to be the case? That would be the Democrats. You know what I'm saying? And I know I've made this point before. I hate saying the Democrats because immediately it makes me sound like some right-wing lunatic, which I'm really not. I'm a pretty moderate guy. I sat through an entire conversation about a tattoo and not once called anyone a moron. So I would say I'm pretty tolerant. But when you have the president, again, Joe Biden, remember when he went on Charlemagne's show and said, if, you don't vote for me, you ain't black. I mean, that's as clear as day if he's saying you got to vote. The leader of the Democratic Party, the current motherfucking president, said you have to vote for me if you're black. That's literally what he said. He said that. And then Kanye says that's racist, and Kanye's racist. What kind of spells are fucking afoot right now? What the shit? Shit seems not only backwards, but upside down. You know what I'm saying? Fucking weird. I mean, it's strange out here. Like, now you can't even go to a concert without getting fucking killed or stabbed by a mysterious assailant with a syringe. So 8 people died at Travis Scott's Astro World Festival, which, happens. People pass out at concerts all the time. I hate fucking bars because they're too crowded and you can't move around. Imagine a concert specifically tailored towards mosh pitting and acting a fool. People are going to pass out. That shit's going to happen. It's Texas. It's hot. No one's drinking water. Everyone's drinking ketamine. Some shit's going to happen. But I love a good satanic panic fear in the media. I love that shit. I eat that shit up because, it's true. That's why. I guess that's why I eat that shit up, because it's always true. So after 8 people died during the festival, and there's footage still coming out of Travis Scott still continuing to perform after seeing people getting carried out on stretchers, ambulances pulling up, people in the crowd yelling stop, he kept going. And then the news gets a hold of this, the story comes out, and then that's when the fun shit starts, because then people start to break down imagery, symbols. Is this the Illuminati? Is this the CIA? Is this MK Ultra? Should I move out of my mom's basement? Things like that. But the result of people, getting into it like that are these great fantastical theories where people start to point out the fact that, like, the entrance to the festival, you literally walked through a giant bust of Travis Scott's head, and the entrance was his mouth. Not unlike, Moloch from the famous Gates of Hell painting. And then you get to inside of the venue, and the stage is an inverted cross, and there's like this giant LED screen behind that's like this circular thing that throughout the points of the show start to like morph into this vortex portal looking thing. There's all this imagery. There's these giant hands over the thing pulling people in. On the stage, it's written like, see you on the other side. I mean, it's almost like it's done on purpose, And clearly Travis Scott is not Satan. That's kind of ridiculous. But I know this is going to sound crazy and this is going to sound weird, but I'm not ruling out the fact it was Satan, just bear with me on this. And I know, but I have a decent enough argument. When people bang the satanic panic drum like they did with Marilyn Manson after Columbine or any other person, honestly, I can't think of any other examples because it's been a while since rock music was popular. But Travis Scott could, and I mean this sincerely, have done so without meaning to. And what I mean by that is, like, there are clearly symbols important to people. There are symbols that mean things. Symbols are powerful. I forget the name of the sociologist that first proposed this, but he proposed this concept that symbolism or symbology is what makes up the world, is what determines our worldview. The way we interact and interface with whatever the fuck we want to call reality or what's left of it, because the clock is sure as fuck ticking thanks to Facebook, we do so through symbolizing things, through not literally symbols like squares, but through churches, through families, through social conventions. They're all symbolized, romanticized in our head, and then it's through that process mentally where we extrapolate how we should be, how we should act, and how we should treat one another. And the same thing applies, however, to bad actions, to bad decisions, to evil actions. So if you're going to have an entire concert where you make use of this type of imagery, clearly recognized and known throughout history. I mean, this shit goes back to the Middle Ages with a lot of it. Clearly. I mean, he knew what he was doing to an extent, too. Because you know how people who make, like, fancy 100 designer T-shirts, like $100 T-shirts, They all know this shit because these are the same people that didn't have to work, that could afford to just get educated until they stopped. It's till a point of diminishing returns, let's say, and you start to just read too much. You start to create artwork and you start doing these things where I don't think you're 100% sure of what you're doing. And if we are to accept that this symbology can kind of shape our worldview, that means symbols can kind of control us in a sense. So without knowing it even, our use of something, of a symbol, if we're not fully aware of the meaning of it, I would imagine if you get enough of them in one place, there's some type of negative frequency that can suddenly get just loud enough past threshold where something bad can happen. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I'm making it up in my head. I don't know if I've watched too much TV. But I just feel like if symbols are important, and I believe they are, I don't have proof of that, but I think symbols make up our world. If you get enough bad symbols together, even if you genuinely don't know what you're doing or don't understand the use or origin or meaning of them, you can accidentally create some event that you didn't want to have happen, would be my best guess at explaining that. I don't know if that's what happened, but it sure as fuck is more interesting if you consider that is what happened. And I mean, all signs point to it because it's a war of all against all. You know, whether or not you want to get into being a spiritual person or not, and you can probably, I would imagine, go through most of your life without ever deciding to have any type of spirituality. I'm sure if you have a nice, decent, privileged enough life, you don't have a reason enough to welcome that new perspective. But that doesn't mean that's not what the fuck's going on here, because there's definitely people walking around who 100% believe shit is metaphysical out here in these streets. You know what I'm saying? So if they believe that so firmly, even if you haven't gotten around to even thinking about whether or not you want to accept a level of spirituality, that does not mean all of the spirituality has waited for you to make up your mind. This might have been a tangent completely without a point that you can't understand, but in my head, it feels like this makes a lot of sense. So the long and short of it is, Travis Scott's not Satan, but I still think Satan killed those people. I mean, there was a dude running around with a mysterious syringe injecting people. What the fuck does that tell you? And at the very, 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 very least, Travis Scott has a song called The Butterfly Effect. So, you know, that's got MK Ultra CIA written all over it. So, that's my take on that. Last thing I wanted to discuss was Elon Musk. Elon Musk is someone I've talked about a little bit before. He's someone who I think invented Bitcoin. He's someone who I think is literally an extraterrestrial. However, the reality is probably way more boring than that, because I think he's just a dick. I used to like Elon Musk. When I first found out about him, I remember I was in high school probably. So it was probably like 8 years ago was the first time I started hearing about him. And he was positioned at the time as like this guy taking on the oil industry. He was revolutionizing cars. He was going up against these big, antiquated industries that had come to become the scapegoat for a lot of the world's issues, right? Fast forward to going on Joe Rogan, getting high, marrying Grimes, having a kid named a keyboard accident, to selling stock, to just basically getting too big for his britches, I think, you know? And that's notwithstanding the fact he comes from a family of slave owners, you know? Everyone wants to just brush over the fact dude is of Dutch origin from South America. Now, I don't know if any of you paid attention to history or social studies in school, but Dutch people from South Africa, not the nicest. It's almost like the Dutch invented modern slavery. It's almost like the term Afrikaner refers to white people from South Africa descended from Dutch people who used to own people. It's no wonder why he's probably tight with Biden. Piece of shit. Go split another stock, fucko. Elon Musk once promised to never sell a single share of Tesla stock. And now he's sold over 1 billion shares of Tesla stock. And the reason he did so, it's kind of intelligent in a cold, calculated, I don't care about anybody type of way. Because what happened was Elon was about to get hit with a giant fucking tax bill because, the Biden administration has decided to make everyone poor and things more expensive. And because rich people have this weird way of being able to avoid the same fees that everyone else seems to pay, Elon smartly, rather than pay a tax bill on made income, sold off billions of shares to offset his earnings, which would then lower his tax bill for this year, which there's nothing wrong with. I mean, it's a little like, wink and a fucking nod, but like, if it's on the books, if it's legal, it's legal. I'm not mad at anyone who figures out how to game the system, because that means you put in the time and the energy to figure out how to do so, which means you earned it. And if it's still not illegal, let's party. But to be so disingenuous with it, to frame it on Twitter, to let the people decide what was going to happen, to act like you're doing everyone a favor when you're literally just saving money, that's where the lines cross for me. Because if you're going to be a gamer, you're going to be a swordsman, if you will. Because a fisherman always sees a fisherman from afar. But the thing is, fishermen shouldn't be allowed to fish with dynamite. It seems a little unfair. You know what I mean? You can't get social capital when you're purposely sacrificing some of it to save on financial capital. You know what I mean? That's what's a little fucking gross. And it seems like Elon's public perception has only started to go down and down and down over the last few months. Partly because he might have robbed almost every one of their life savings after telling everyone to put all their money in Dogecoin for no fucking reason at all, just so he could make a few billion. And then shorted it, went on SNL, and everyone forgave him because we're all stupid. He keeps doing these things that have just chipped away at all the goodwill I had or used to have for him. I don't know how much you can keep forgiving the guy for just because his tweets are kind of funny and he pokes fun at being an alien. Shit. Teslas are all right. But why did your family own people? Dogecoin is technically a cryptocurrency, but it really doesn't have any fucking value, and you just used it as a pump and dump scheme to make money off innocent people. You just moved to Texas to save money on taxes that you would have had if you were in California. That shit's fine. But what you can't do is misuse your intelligence to take advantage of people. That's where the line's drawn. You can use your intelligence to take advantage of the government. If you have the ability to, I encourage you to do that. I would use all of your wits and talents and God-given skills to rip off the government. I'm all for that shit. But don't do it to hurt people. Don't Robin Hood just to give to yourself, you African piece of shit. Yeah, that was fucking, how about that? Actually true, accurate, true statement I just said. Elon Musk, piece of shit from Africa. If you're gonna be that smart, use it for good. It's that classic fucking, great power, great responsibility statement out of the fucking dumbass uncle who couldn't, withstand a gunshot wound. If you're this smart, you can invent PayPal, you can get us back to the moon or back up for the first time, who knows. You're going to take us to Mars. You can have all these companies. You're going to dig fucking hyper trains to connect major cities, even though there's probably a vast underground network of dumbs already connected to one another. If you're going to do all that, and you're going to have all the mental ability to do so, don't also use that skill set to financially make yourself richer at the expense of others becoming poorer, because that's exactly what he did with Dogecoin. Remember, he got into Dogecoin, told everyone to buy Dogecoin, and because he was the first guy who put a lot of fucking money in it and had a lot of it, Dogecoin to the moon, all of a sudden he has another fucking billion or so. And then he sells it all because now he has $1 billion, and he would very much like that $1 billion. And then everyone else holding on it stuck holding the bag, losing all of the money. The people that put $200 in and we're sitting on $35,000, life-changing money for a lot of fucking people, lost it all in a single transaction by a guy from South Africa whose family used to own people and forgave him because he went on Saturday Night Live and dressed like a Mario brother. Which, just saying, seems a little racist towards Italians. Like what, Italians can only talk like a pizzeria owner and be a plumber? That's the best they could do? It's me, a plumber. That seems a little racist, you know? I suppose the moral of all this, if there is a moral, is if you are lucky enough to be intelligent, have a skill set, be someone who can make some changes around you, be honest with what your intentions are, and try not to be a piece of shit and racist. I don't think that's too much to ask. Or maybe it is. Maybe my expectations of people are too high. Maybe I'm wrong for thinking the President of the United States should be a little more bright and clean and articulate. Because, I mean, that would be storybook, man.